You are listening to the ERP, Organizational Change Journal, a podcast brought to you by Nestell and Associates.
So, Ian, the first question is, and again, without giving away the secret sauce, what inspired you to write your book and compile a book just talking about such a topic, leading transformational change?
Yeah, actually, Jack, it was a couple of things combined. Maybe first, sitting here at home, like so many of us were during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, I was observing what was happening in the world around us, not only in terms of the significant health impacts, which obviously were enormous and in some cases, very devastating for people, but also economic uncertainty and some of the political division, certainly in the United States, that was starting to emerge around that issue as well, and began thinking, what does it really take for people to survive and perhaps even thrive in periods of large-scale transformational change? This then led me to think about the topic of leading transformational change. I pretty quickly figured out I wasn't really smart enough to write about it on my own. Now, I'm fortunate, as you mentioned, to lead this really fascinating community network of independent coaches and consultants that we call the Consortium for Change, or C4C for short. And it's about 75 or so independent, very successful and experienced coaches and consultants, many of whom are also quite expert in and very interested in the topic of leading transformational change. So part of what inspired me to write the book was the opportunity to collaborate and bring many disparate, diverse perspectives to this book. I've more recently become rather fond of calling it 200 voices in under 200 pages, because between the essays that people contributed and the interviews with senior level leaders that they conducted and the survey input that we received, we literally do have about 200 voices that have contributed to the book. And as it turns out, as I'm sure you and many of your listeners know, if you talk to publishers and a lot of other people in the world, what they'll tell you is people don't really read books anymore. And so the 350 or 400 page book, while there's many great ones out there, it's become more and more difficult for people to get through. So part of our objective was bring to bear these collective perspectives on transformational change, some of which mutually reinforce one another and some of which may actually conflict, but do it in a brief enough and pragmatic enough way that people can get through it, and literally doing it, in our case, in 199 pages. So those are really the main drivers for me in thinking about pulling this book together as we did.